all across the Lone Star State.
It's GRN Alive.
Bringing you faith, fun, and facts.
Live from the studios of the Guadalupe Radio Network.
Join us on the show. Call
877-757-9424.
877-757-9424.
Good morning. Welcome to GRN Alive Friday edition here on the Guadalupe Radio Network. Conversation has already started here in the studio. We're having a great conversation. Glad you could join us here at the top of the hour for this weekly GRN Alive. We also do it on Mondays from our Houston studio. Joe and the team do a fabulous job. We're glad that you were with us. If you want to join in on the conversation at any point during this hour, 877-757-9424. My name is Dave Palmer. I'm already out of breath. Boy, I'll tell you.
It was all that early jog.
Yeah, right. I wish. Sissel Anderson behind the glass for the first part comes out this way after the show. Good morning, Sissel. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Did you know I discovered something this morning, Dave?
What did you discover?
I discovered when I was in haste to get out of my bed that I can still go in the splits.
Well, is that right?
Yeah. It hurt
Was
a little
it
bit, but
accidental? Oh,
Yeah.
it was accidental.
it was accidental. I'm on the top bunk, and I jumped out a little too roughly, and I may have left some clothing on the floor the night before and went all the way down.
I think if that had happened to me, I'd be in the emergency room right now. So you're more limber than I am.
That's good.
So that's good. Glad you're with us. Dr. Malloy, how are you?
I'm not doing the splits.
I just had to have something special to say. I don't wear a bow tie. I don't wear a cap. I had to have something,
You can do the splits on
I'll do a
Facebook?
flip next week.
Oh, okay. All right. And Alex Trevino has his customary hat.
The hat of the week.
Yeah.
Like your bow tie. I love your bow tie, by the way.
Yeah, good multicolored bow tie on Dr. Malloy. And you want to share what your hat is, or is it a secret only for people who go on Facebook?
Well, go on Facebook and look at it. But no, it's okay. It's a Notre Dame hat.
Dun,
by
dun,
Irish.
dun, dun.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it ties into some things this week, but also our guest at 8:30.
Yeah,
an opportunity that we had together at Notre Dame.
8:30 and 8:15, because I think our
actually all the guests this week. Yeah. I didn't even think about that this morning when I put it on, and then I realized walking in.
Yeah, all right. Go to Facebook. Diane Xavier does a splendid job with our Facebook, and we may be on Twitter. We were having a few issues with Twitter this morning, but go to facebook.com/GRN Online. I think it is. The handle is GRN Online, and you can see all that's going on behind the scenes. And today is October 16th, 2020, Friday of the 28th week in Ordinary Time. And today, and I left this as a secret even to Dr. Malloy and Alex, today is, and we got some audio that Sissel's going to play here in a second. Today's the 42nd anniversary. You know this.
Yeah.
Do you know, Dr. Malloy? 42nd anniversary of what?
Humane Vitae.
No.
No. It was the 42nd anniversary of this.
Habemus Papam.
Now listen to this. This is commentary about what happened 42 years ago. It's awesome.
Eminentissimum ac reverendissimum Dominum Carolum Sancte Romane Ecclesiae Cardinalem Wojtyła.
As far as we can understand, the Cardinal Felici has just announced the name of a Polish cardinal. Am I correct, Father O'Keefe?
This is exactly correct. This is Cardinal Charles Wojtyła, who is 58 years old, and he is the Cardinal Archdiocese of Cracovia.
Sibi nomen imposuit Ioannis Pauli,
who has taken the name of John Paul.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. So then the commentators were like, wow,
Did you
that's
hear,
amazing.
Did you hear he had to say Wojtyła?
Yeah.
He whispered it.
Right.
So he started out Karol, and then here in the background,
Wojtyła.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know some of us were too young to remember or be alive during that time, but do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that, but about 6 months later, he was in Chicago, and I threw a paper airplane at him.
Awesome.
That's a legacy right there.
My folks take us to Chicago. We're at a street corner, and he's just tooling around. I mean, there were no bodyguards or anything back then.
Yeah.
So he's driving through the streets of Chicago, and they're like, here's the Pope. And I was like, I don't know what a Pope is, but I'm going to throw an airplane.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's the first thing you think of. Of course.
And then Secret Service
That started
came.
your fascination with theology. Right?
Exactly.
And 3 years later, it would be the assassination attempt,
Yeah.
and then all the innocence was lost after that, the same year as Ronald Reagan. So thought I'd share that with you.
That's awesome.
Happy memory. The crowd was going wild, and of course, the world really came to know this incredible Polish Pope, Karol Wojtyła, over the next, 26 years as Pope or something like that. So happy memory there. We have, now I wanted to start off with that, something happy and joyful, but the theme of the show today is Divided Hearts of America. We're going to talk about, we are a deeply, deeply divided country, and I don't think anybody is surprised when I say that. We're going to talk a little bit about the town hall meetings that went on last night, some of the controversy with the media, social media giants, and what happened this week. We have Jason Jones joining us at the bottom of the hour, and he has put out a movie by that name, Divided Hearts of America. And this is something you arranged for us, talking about the abortion issue with football star Benjamin Watson.
That's right. Yeah. They just filmed this documentary over the course of a couple months, and they are releasing it either pretty soon or they just released it. But Jason, I guess we'll tell you a little more about that.
Mm-hmm. And then here in about 15 minutes, attorney Frank Valenzuela is going to join us to talk about this week's confirmation hearing with Amy Coney Barrett, the woman whose the dogma lives loudly in her, mother of 7, Catholic, adopted 2 children, and everything. It was not nearly the circus that the Kavanaugh hearing was, and thanks be to God for that. And so Frank's going to join us and give his take. He's also a former student of Amy Coney Barrett, and so we'll hear his first-hand take on what he thinks about her. I'm sure it's positive. And so anyways, let's...
you never know with the lawyer.
Yeah, these guys. So anyways, let's talk a little bit about Divided Hearts of America when it comes to politics, when it comes to media. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I just the fact that we had to have 2 town hall meetings last night and not a debate is indicative of the division within America. I mean, the fact that they couldn't even get together in one stage for whatever reason, but it was pretty.
It was
crazy.
the COVID, right?
That
was part of it, for sure.
It, but
yeah.
the doctors had cleared Trump to. I mean, he was there.
Wow.
He was there with people. He was there with Samantha Guthrie.
That stage is big enough for 2 people. It's
So,
big enough for 3.
What's the story on it? They proposed a Zoom, and then he said, no, I'm
He did not
doing
wanna do-
Zoom.
yeah, he didn't wanna do
So then they
telecast,
cancel
yeah.
it, and then he gets better.
Well, he got better within a week. I mean, he was out on the campaign trail, I think 7 or 8 days after being diagnosed.
But his double negative test came in, early this week, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably what the Democrats were waiting for.
And so...
How about the third debate? Is that going to happen?
That's next
next week?
Thursday.
Yeah, next week.
That's next Thursday. That should be in person. But there was also a lot of talk about the fairness between the tone between the 2 debates, the moderators, Samantha Guthrie with NBC. It seemed almost like a debate with her and Trump. She asked 44 questions. The town hall people asked 10. And then on the other side, in ABC, George Stephanopoulos and Joe Biden had a pretty friendly chat. It didn't seem to be too many challenges. So a lot of people are raising that question: is the media contributing to the division in America? I don't know. What do you think?
Fireside chat with Stephanopoulos.
Yeah.
Well,
sorry.
what about this? So I guess you got the thing up on your computer. I guess Sissel's going to be talking about that. I mean, the way they're covering these other things as well.
Yeah, and it's also, I find it so interesting that they ran simultaneously. It's not like they're competing TV shows.
Yeah.
This is our presidential, year of we're voting.
Right,
we should have opportunity to watch both of them and not have to switch between on commercial breaks.
Yeah.
That seems weird.
Yeah, it does.
It's
It goes with the way Facebook works, because you're in your you're in your little community.
true.
They're in their community. It's part of this divide and create ghettos through the electronic
and
media.
one of the things, of course, when we talk about Amy Coney Barrett's hearing with Frank Valenzuela in a moment, is the country irreparably divided?
Right.
I mean, is there anything that could possibly happen to bring us together? I mean, maybe if there was a foreign enemy that came and attacked us, like 9/11, that would bring us together temporarily. But it just
George
seemed,
Floyd could have. I mean, that
that could
whole
have been
incident,
something that could have brought everyone together.
Yeah.
we were just about there that
I
whole
feel like
week.
it did for a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, everybody agreed that it was egregious. It was wrong. But then the riots started. And then everybody goes crazy with it. If you have a take on this, what's it going to take? I personally think abortion has a lot to do with it. I think abortion is the issue. It's what kind of centers around all the Supreme Court hearings. Clarence Thomas made that point. He said it was all about abortion with me. It wasn't Anita Hill. 877-757-9424. 877-757-9424. And the other, Sissy, I know you were going to introduce a few stories as well.
Yeah, so you may have heard this week that there is some talk about censorship going on Twitter and Facebook, and this has been going on for a little bit, but it was pretty obvious this last week. The New York Post is one of the country's oldest and largest newspapers. It was founded by Alexander Hamilton, if anyone wants to start singing the song right now.
Yeah, Alex, go ahead.
Yeah.
Never seen a minute of Hamilton.
I'm sorry, Alex.
If it comes into town, let's get tickets.
Yeah, exactly.
I only want to watch it live. I think
it would be amazing.
I'm a purist when it comes to theater. I only watch things live in person. I can't watch recordings.
I see. All right. So it is from what I've been able to read. It seems it's a little bit more of a right wing news outlet, but on Wednesday it released a story about Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, about the traded his father's positions by securing favors from the vice president of the Ukrainian energy company, and it was it was a pretty hot topic this week. But interestingly, both Facebook and Twitter are having some restrictions on people sharing that.
Yeah.
And Twitter particularly wouldn't let people share it on some cases. And anyone who dare bring it up, even people who support Biden. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, it's just really interesting because one journalist, I can't find her name right now. Maggie Haberman from the New York Times, who has heavily criticized Trump. She's definitely not a Trump lover. Because she mentioned it and was pointing out its flaws on Twitter, she started being called MAGA Haberman and stuff like that. And it was censored and yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's into the point is it seems like everybody has to fall into one camp or the other. You got to either be really Republican or really liberal, really conservative, really liberal.
Yeah, there's no
middle ground.
You cannot criticize anything at all.
Yeah.
And the thing is that no one's perfect on either side. So
yeah.
Are you not allowed to criticize on against the right or the alleged alt-right?
So that's an interesting point. I don't know. That's a great question because I haven't seen anything censored that was criticizing. But
and getting back to the media with last night, Trump continues to be asked these questions about white supremacy, QAnon. Whose life is being impacted by QAnon? Lives are being impacted by Black Lives Matter and Antifa. More so a month or two ago than now, but QAnon? Well, why is that a legitimate question at debate? And the Hunter Biden story
didn't even come up.
Did not even come up, and that was huge this week. And so the very questions, and I think about Catholic radio. We're biased. We are, unapologetically Catholic, and there are some things we let on, some things we don't. But we're on it. That's what we say we are. We're a Catholic radio station, so we're not going to let the atheist have a show on why God doesn't exist, right? We're not fair and balanced. But I think there should be some presumption with media that they should be balanced.
I say I don't like that way of putting it. Fair and balanced. We're truthful. We believe this is the truth. So we're not. What is it? We're not refusing to take refusing to take a stand.
Yeah.
On issues. That doesn't mean we're not fair and balanced.
Yeah. I'm using a Fox line, I guess.
I know that's the
we report, you decide, or something.
There's lots of basically the movement of thought now, and there's a risk to this, but the movement of thought now appreciates that there is really no such thing as a purely objective, neutral account, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but that news has yet to get out into the.
No.
Well, I think in our individual lives, the more holiness we pursue, the better we live our lives individually.
Exactly.
That can start making changes. The better husbands and wives and people and employees we are. And maybe it's on a very micro level. We can't try to solve all the world's problems and bring peace, but just kind of be good ourselves. And maybe there's something there. Let me bring on our first guest, who is Frank Valenzuela. And Frank has been on the program a number of times. It's been a while.
It has.
And I'm assuming, Frank, you're still at the same law firm that you were before. Is that right?
Unless you know something I don't. Yes.
Okay. I'll say it once because it's a mouthful. Fanning, Harper, Martinson, Brandt, and Kuchin. There you go. And he's also a former student of Amy Coney Barrett. Interesting.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Judge Barrett was my evidence professor when I was at Notre Dame Law.
Okay.
Evidence is a really important class if you're going to go into litigation.
Yeah.
Because it teaches you how to present the facts, create the world for the jury during a trial. And it can be complicated, it can be convoluted because some of these rules have developed over centuries. And she made the complex easy. She was a pleasure to have as a professor and very effective.
How many years ago was this? Was it recent?
No.
Oh, a long time ago.
Dave wants to date you.
No, I know where this is going. I'd say about 18 years or so. It was her first year teaching. It may have 17, 18 years.
Yeah, all right. So let's talk about the week that was.
Yes.
And, everything kind of wrapped up, I think, yesterday. And
That's right.
She went through a line of questioning. My first observation, and I want to get your general thoughts about it, is that it wasn't the circus that the Brett Kavanaugh hearing was. You didn't have the public disruptions. You didn't have the craziness. Maybe that was related to COVID. They just weren't letting the public in.
That's right.
It was much calmer. I mean, that's an understatement than the Kavanaugh hearings.
It was much calmer, though the Kavanaugh hearings, the first part before the Judiciary Committee was not. It was interrupted by protesters in the background, but the large conflict that later erupted in those hearings came after the original judiciary hearings. But yes, due to COVID, they weren't allowing any protesters or anybody to sit in the audience during the hearings.
Yeah.
So I think that probably cut down on some of the interruptions.
And obviously there was not as much personal attack. It seemed like most of the attack came down with the Affordable Care Act, Roe v. Wade, or the gay marriage ruling, Obergefell versus Hodges. That was kind of the three-prong attack, though, those three, would you say?
Yes, I think those were the major thrust of the attack. I think that when Judge Barrett, back in 2017, when she was up for the nomination to the Seventh Circuit, I think Senator Feinstein's anti-Catholic commentary and attack toward her, the dogma lives loudly in you, I think that did not play well. And I think that there was a concern that with this close to the election, that it could alienate some voters on the Democratic side of the aisle and perhaps galvanize those on the right. So I think it seemed to me they, generally speaking, the senators steered clear of those topics.
But she's a very good nominee.
She's very likable.
She carried herself very well. She's a hard person to not like.
She is. I mean, she is unbelievably well qualified, very, very intelligent, and that's from both the left and the right. They acknowledge that her academic credentials and her accomplishments as a judge. So, and to boot, she is just a very likable person with a very family-friendly background, and it's hard to attack somebody like that.
Yes, and I'm sorry. Did you have a question, Alex?
Oh no, I was just watching this back and forth. It was great. I was spectating for a little bit.
I did see CNN. They commented. CNN. They talked about the notebook. The blank notebook.
Oh yeah,
and then the lady said, in any other president at any other time, she would get 70 votes easily.
Yeah,
right. Wow. And back in the 80s and maybe early 90s, before Judge Bork, she would have gotten 98, 99, or 100.
So is that right? So before the Bork, this was a lot less political.
I believe. Well, even I think that Justice Scalia was something like 98 votes, and I believe he came after Bork. I don't remember that.
Hard to believe.
So what's changed? I mean, the theme of the show is Divided Hearts of America. We're divided, I mean, hugely. And is it abortion, or in your opinion, or what changed?
These have become much more contentious. I think in the past, there was an understanding that if the judge appeared to be qualified, as from a judicial standpoint, in other words, they they said they were going to be a judge and interpret the law, and they weren't going to be particularly activist. If they were a qualified person to sit on the bench, they were let through by the left and the right. But I think after Judge Bork and then Justice Thomas, it's sort of been knives out as far as, from a practical standpoint, are you going to overturn Roe? Are you going to overturn Casey? And the other decisions.
Mm-hmm. Have we seen more activism since that time? Judicial, sort of quasi-legislating from the bench, or?
It's hard to say because the philosophy of judging has changed a lot over the decades. So you had the Warren Court back in the 60s and 70s, and they, I think many would say, were very activist. But then with Justice Scalia, he, with his push for originalism and textualism, really initiated a significant sea change on the court to the point where Justice Kagan, during her nominating confirmation process, she said, we're all textualists now, because Justice Scalia's emphasis on reading the text and sticking to the texts really moved the court toward you have to be able to justify this based on the text. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that Justice Kagan and Justice Scalia agreed on everything. They certainly didn't.
Sure.
But at least his push, I think, helped to ground the analysis more.
How many votes did she get? I'm just interested in.
I don't know.
Okay.
Who was that? Kagan?
Kagan, yeah.
Oh, well, gosh.
I think it was bipartisan, but I don't know how many she got.
Lindsey Graham voted for her. That's what he said. Yeah.
So I'm saying this is interesting because the Republicans tend to not go as much along party lines, I think, on a lot of these issues.
And they also don't treat the nominees as unfairly. I mean, I don't think there's been a case that we can think of, like a Kavanaugh or a Clarence Thomas, or, that were treated as poorly on the other side. I can't help but think, I think Judge Barrett is truly a wonderful, holy, God-fearing Catholic woman, and she just seems... But she made a very clear distinction that when she is a Supreme Court justice, if she is confirmed, she's going to follow the law. And I can't help but thinking, and this is just an opinion question on yours, if the law is Roe v. Wade and she wants to follow precedent, and she probably legally could, isn't that still on one's conscience? I mean, that you are responsible for the death indirectly of millions of children. How can a judge, in your opinion, separate those two?
Well, they're competing obligations, I think, because when she takes the oath to uphold the Constitution, she's taking that oath before God, and so there's an obligation that she takes on herself in that respect. Yeah. But then she also has the obligations from a personal standpoint, of the moral obligations from a personal standpoint. So I would not even begin to presume to say what she would do in those particular instances, or what she should do. Those are many times highly fact-based situations. But I do believe she's written a law review article specifically on that point, and it has said that ultimately, if a judge cannot find a way through between the legal obligation to do what the law requires, because she would be a subordinate judge, in other words, not on the Supreme Court, and a moral position that she simply cannot take, that such a judge should recuse herself from such a situation. So, for example, during the Seventh Circuit confirmation hearings, she said that she would have a problem being a federal district court judge and citing somebody's death warrant in a federal criminal procedure. Yeah. That she did not think that morally that she would be allowed to do that, and so in such an instance, she might very well recuse herself. At the appellate level, though, those are not the issues you're looking at. For example, with the death penalty, there you're reviewing, was the evidence appropriate? Did the judge properly analyze the law? You're not deciding whether somebody lives or die. In her example, you're more looking at whether the district judge got it right.
Yeah. From a moral theology standpoint, I just, and again, I'm not questioning her because I think she is a wonderful woman, but I just wonder if somebody could say, you know what, President Trump, I can't be nominated for this because I would have to be honest in the questioning that abortion is wrong, it's an intrinsic evil, and yes, I would absolutely vote because Roe v. Wade is a wrong law, but you can't say that because you're done in the process, right?
Are there any judicial decisions or opinions that have been written at any level that would point to something like this? the law of the land, the Constitution, you probably had Professor Leopold de Alvarez, right?
Yes.
So he gave a talk one time at University of Dallas that talked about the unwritten Constitution. Are there any decisions that point to the law of the land that sort of might be indicated, say, by the Declaration of Independence, by the very oath that, notice how you took the oath. The oath is to God about upholding the law, but it is to God indicating a kind of higher authority. Is there anything like that in the history of this country, or is it just judges recusing themselves?
I'm not aware of anything like what you're describing, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I will say that Judge Barrett was asked about the role, I believe she was asked about the role of the Declaration of Independence. If it wasn't her, it was another judge who I heard this week speak. And I think, no, actually it was Judge Barrett. And she said, the Declaration of Independence is obviously a tremendously important document in the history of our nation, but the Declaration itself is not law. The Constitution is what is law. And between the two, insofar as there's conflict, there wouldn't really be because the Declaration is not law, you would go with the Constitution.
So it's interesting because in the Catholic tradition of social moral teaching, you have this reference to God. There is a law above human institution, and that I guess that it's interesting because who could actually pass a hearings who adverted to that tradition.
But, yeah, and it's
other nations have operated according to that.
Yeah,
but we don't.
And it because of the way that the Constitution is structured, I think that judicial nominees very much have to try to separate their personal views, whether they be religious or philosophical or whatever, from reading the law.
Yeah. Let me. I took it in a direction that question just popped into my mind about that. But I want to ask you, Senator Lindsey Graham made a point of saying she is the first openly pro-life woman to ever be nominated to the Supreme Court, and he complimented her on that. I thought that was nice, and you may have also heard the Senator Dianne Feinstein, the open mic comment that she made, and
yes.
Just maybe a comment on either of these senators' comments. Feinstein said, quote, "She's been pro-life for a long time, so I suspect with her it is deeply personal and comes with her religion," end quote. Right. On the face of it, I don't see any problem with that quote. It's true, right? What do you think she was getting at there?
I think that, again, Senator Feinstein, I'm sure, can speak for herself, but what I assume that she's saying is acknowledging perhaps what Senator Graham was saying, that on a personal level, she's pro-life, she's Catholic, and she holds those views. But so do all the justices who sit on the Supreme Court and who have ever sat on the Supreme Court. They all come to the court with their own beliefs, religious, philosophical, political, and you're talking about one whole integral person. It's not like you're going in, you're dividing yourself up. So the fact that Judge Barrett is coming to the court as a Catholic woman does not any more disqualify her than it disqualified then Judge Ginsburg coming as a Jewish woman.
Yeah.
In the United States, in the system we have, there are no religious tests to sit on the Supreme Court. And so just because she's Catholic and the other one's Jewish and somebody may be atheist or Episcopalian, under the Constitution, that doesn't make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where do we go from here? Do you think it's going to be smooth sailing and a vote on the 22nd and confirmation, or what?
I hope so. The senators get to submit written questions to Judge Barrett up to 8 o'clock tonight, I think, and then she gets to respond to those. And then on the 22nd, I believe it's at 1 o'clock, there's going to be a vote in the Judiciary Committee, and then it goes to the full Senate. And my understanding is that Senator McConnell wants to have the final vote by no later than, I believe he said, the 27th or so.
Yeah. Senator, I think Cory Booker was the one that said several times, this goose is cooked. Have you heard me say that? I think meaning that there's nothing we can do about this. Is that the case?
I think that if you asked Justice Kavanaugh, after the first round of Senate confirmation hearings, he may have been making the side dishes for the goose, and it didn't really turn out all that smooth. But by all appearances, it looks like they have the vote. Senator Romney came out yesterday, I believe, and said that he was going to vote for Judge Barrett. And I think, in my mind, from a political standpoint, stepping away from the legal commentary here, that's a pretty good indicator. Because if Senator Romney does seem to be more middle of the road, I guess you would say, in the Republican Party. And if he is saying that he's going to vote for her, that's a good indicator that it's going to happen.
Yeah. All right. Did you have a last question, Dr. Malloy, or are we finished with a witness?
Well, how about giving advice to any parents out there who have children that might be thinking about law and maybe becoming a judge? It seems that Judge Barrett has done really well to be professional. I doubt there's a Facebook record of her just spouting off, but all of the young kids are out there putting all their personal views out there in a way that may harm them.
Sure, and that is definitely a concern across the board, whether you're going to be a judge or anything else. Colleges are looking at social media and whatnot. And again, Judge Barrett, no doubt, could give much better advice than I can. But it depends. She, in large part, I think, is a product of the Notre Dame Law School. I went to the Notre Dame Law School. She went to Notre Dame Law School. The Notre Dame Law School is a very special place. Their moniker is educating a special kind of lawyer. Educating a different type of lawyer. We saw Patricia O'Hara, her professor and mentor. She was the dean when I was at the law school. Dean O'Hara was. And I still remember to this day, the first day we were there for orientation, that she said, here at the law school, she said, I'm paraphrasing obviously, here at the law school, we teach law keeping in mind that the incarnation actually happened.
Nice. Oh, wow.
And the Notre Dame Law School, there's Mass every Sunday. There are priests on the faculty. There's a chapel. I think it was the first academic building with a chapel on the campus. They had crucifixes in the classroom. I suppose they still have now, obviously. It's a little dated. But they do a wonderful job. The faculty there does a wonderful job of educating a different type of lawyer.
It must have been fun to watch the process and say, that's my teacher. I know her.
That's right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. She is an amazing woman. I think hopefully she's going to make an amazing justice. And we just, those who support her, I would encourage them to keep praying for her and her family.
Yeah.
Great idea.
She mentioned that at the beginning that she appreciates the prayers, and that was one of her first, I think, opening statements. I think there was a lot of prayer going on, and it showed because she was calm and cool and very collected and very bright too. Frank Valenzuela, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave.
I'd love to have you back on again. If any other legal issues ever come up in the near future with anything related to our country, I doubt they will. But
if Dave's on the hot seat,
that's right.
We'll call you back in.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much.
God bless.
Jason Jones is coming up next, and he has put out and produced a wonderful movie. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm excited, and I've seen the trailer. It looks really interesting.
That looks awesome.
Divided Hearts of America. And so we'll talk to him about that. And one of the issues that continues to divide this country is abortion. It may be the issue. I think, in my opinion, it is. We'll be back after this.
Is the Lord calling you to be a missionary? Hi, Joe McLean here, and the Guadalupe Radio Network is calling for Rosary missionaries to join with the GRN in praying for very special intentions. Would you be one of them? Log on to grnonline.com/missionaries. Together, we can bring the power of prayer to bear on a dark world in need of the light of Christ. Log on to grnonline.com/missionaries.
Solidarity Health Share is rebuilding Catholic healthcare in America. We conform to the moral guidelines of the Catholic Church so you never have to worry about your healthcare dollars paying for anything that violates your conscience. From conception to natural death, we strive to serve all healthcare needs, protect human lives, celebrate families, and promote the dignity of all people. Join Solidarity Health Share in restoring and rebuilding authentic Catholic healthcare by signing up at solidarityhealthshare.org, a sponsor of the Guadalupe Radio Network.
Paragraph 2239 of the Catechism makes it clear we must vote, but there is a catch. Hi, this is Len Oswald, president of the GRN, with this week's Family Minute. We have all heard it said, as Catholics, we must vote our conscience. True, but have we formed it through the teaching of the faith first? According to the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith, a well-formed Christian conscience does not permit one to vote for a political program or an individual law that contradicts the fundamental contents of faith and morals. There are 5 5 non-negotiable issues which must be considered before others: abortion, euthanasia, embryonic stem cell research, human cloning, and homosexual marriage. Why are these 5 issues more important than the others? Other issues are also important. However, these 5 are always intrinsically evil. According to the teaching of the church, there are no circumstances where these 5 can be considered acceptable. Get informed before you vote. Download the Voter's Guide for Serious Catholics at Catholic.com.
All right, we're back. And a lot of talking goes on during these breaks. 877-757-9424. Have had some comments on the Facebook page already. And just a reminder also that we do an after show just on Facebook. And there's one big story that I found on LifeSite News having to do with media, having to do with the COVID pandemic, the lockdowns, the face masks that I don't think are going to have time to talk about during the regular radio program, but I'd love to bring it up afterwards. And so anyways, the phone number again, 877-757-9424. We appreciate your comments and very, very happy to be joined now by Jason Jones. He is a film producer, author, activist, human rights worker, executive producer of the 2006 film Bella, which won several film industry awards and the People's Choice Award in the 2006 Toronto International Film Festival as well. And he's got a long, long bio, but I want to actually get to him and bring him in because he has recently put out a movie called Divided Hearts of America, a documentary featuring NFL star, author, and activist Benjamin Watson, which has been released nationwide this year. Jason Jones, good morning.
Great to be on your show.
Yeah, thanks so much. Gosh, where do we begin? I know you're friends with Alex, and thanks, Alex, for arranging this. When did you guys...
We're acquaintances.
Yeah. Hi, Jason.
We've met.
Are you disassociating?
Those are fighting words.
Jeez.
Oh, man.
Yeah, dude. Welcome to Texas, bro.
Are you going to deny him 3 times? All right, Jason, let's just get straight to it. This movie, I was at the Heroic Media event earlier this year, March 6th. I remember it because it was the day craziness struck.
It was the last event that we had in Dallas.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there was a screening of it, and I was kind of very distracted. I didn't get to see the whole thing, but tell us about the movie. Tell us about how you connected with Benjamin Watson and kind of the purpose and inspiration behind it.
Well, when Governor Cuomo lit Freedom Tower pink to celebrate New York's signing a bill in New York that legalized protected, quote unquote, the right to abortion up to birth and after birth, it was startling. It was really stunning. And we wanted to respond with the film. But we also knew that, the 2020 election would be a very divisive time in our history. We never could have imagined that we would be in a place that we are now. But we wanted to make a film that would really unite this country to show the secret of the origin of our unity and tell that story through the issue of abortion, which is the third great denial of our founding principle. And our founding principle is actually the source of our unity. So we set out to make this documentary. You're right, COVID, for filmmakers, for everyone, obviously, was an incredible challenge. And so by the grace of God, we were able to finish the film and get it out for the fall. And so it's out streaming now. If you go to movie2movement.com, and you can click right there and stream the movie. It's streaming. We've partnered with Salem Communications, so it's streaming at salemnow.com as well.
Yeah, and the film features like 30 different interviews, and they aren't all like-minded people. And so was it Benjamin Watson going around and interviewing people kind of on different political angles to even people who would consider themselves pro-choice? And I know that's always a challenge, when you're trying to get different perspectives, but still kind of push your own opinions. So how did you balance that?
Well, I think the truth is on our side, so we didn't want to set up straw men and knock them down. We wanted their very best arguments presented as clearly as possible from the most attractive spokespersons that they could present. And, Benjamin's a special human being. I don't know if you follow him on Twitter, but he has this way of having what I call Twitter discussions. Everyone else is having Twitter battles. And then there's Benjamin Watson having these discussions on race, on abortion with people from all over the spectrum in a kind of a civil way. And so because of Benjamin Watson, we were able to secure a lot of interviews. We interviewed the two senators that introduced the bill in New York that allowed abortion up till birth and after. And he had very, civil conversations with them, and that's in the film. And, what we realize is they don't really have a leg to stand on other than, the culture of death is the spirit of the age. But I'll tell you, in one of the interviews, I won't say who, we were interviewing someone from the other side, and as they were speaking, I could see their staff behind the screen, the screens for the lighting, and they were just, the girls couldn't control themselves. They were giggling and rolling their eyes every time their boss opened their mouth. And so, there's not a good excuse for allowing abortion up till birth, but they really tried their best. And it just comes really down to positivism. They really do believe that as legislators, they determine what is right or wrong. What they say is so. And if they say, Liz Kruger, the senator from New York, said it basically. If we say the baby in the womb has rights, the baby in the womb has rights. If we say they don't, they don't. We say they don't, so they don't. She says it matter-of-factly, and doesn't deny the humanity of the child in the womb. She just says that we as lawmakers are the ones that decide who has rights. And of course, our nation was founded on the belief that every human being has inalienable rights, that they have this dignity that doesn't come from the state but comes from their creator. And that's what makes us special as a nation. That is the source of our unity. We're the only country in the history of the world founded on a vision of the human person, really founded on anthropology. And that's the Christian understanding of the human person, first revealed through the Jewish scriptures, but revealed in a more striking and startling way that changed the course of human history when the second person of the Trinity became man. And philosophers and theologians and people just trying to understand what that meant. That's where our civilization was birthed. The West was birthed, this very unique civilization. I don't know if you've seen the movie Mulan, Alex, or the rest of the gang there.
The new one?
Is that the new one? Yeah.
Yeah, the new one.
No, I have not.
We were officially boycotting it, but I wanted to write about it, so I watched it. And, but what was striking about Mulan, it was a very Chinese movie in the sense that the hero, Mulan, was an agent of the state putting down a rebellion of a distant occupied land. How different is that from, say, one of our movies, Braveheart? So it was really almost the opposite of Braveheart, which is really striking to me. But that's the difference. Our civilization was birthed. The West was birthed with this understanding of the human person. In a very explicit way in the Declaration of Independence, our republic was birthed on this vision of the human person. And we have no other choice for unity other than statism and terror. Either we acknowledge the truth about the dignity of the human person or we're organized through tyranny because we don't have a history, a shared history as a people. We don't have a shared ethnicity. We don't have a shared we don't share the same religion, so all of us. So what is the source of our unity? It has to be something else. Speaking of not being shared ethnicity, when Alex was so kind of take me to the Alamo, I just want everyone to know I punched him really hard and said, remember the Alamo.
Oh, boy.
And by the way, Jason Jones is joining us. We're talking about Divided Hearts of America, the new movie that he made with Benjamin Watson, NFL star from the New England Patriots. And you can go to movie2movement.com, and you can also find Divided Hearts film on Facebook as well. And I guess the thing that perplexes me, Jason, and everybody here is, we still at this point in the 21st century have people running for office that support killing babies in the womb. It's like if somebody were to run for office and say, I'm a racist, it might have worked, 60 years ago. It doesn't work now. So that changed. That issue was changed, and thank God it did. But we got to get to the point where no legitimate candidate for office could ever run and support abortion. And I wonder if what you're doing, and with, like you say, Benjamin Watson's personality, maybe this is how we move the needle a little bit.
Yeah, I'm a great admirer of the Catholic anthropologist René Girard, or the anthropologist who happened to be Catholic, René Girard. And, he writes about the spirit of the age and what he called the mimetic contagion, these enthusiasms that are bizarre. Segregation was bizarre. Like, we look back at it, and it was bizarre. Slavery was unimaginably bizarre. Abortion is bizarre. It's unimaginable. But these enthusiasms, these spirits of the age, there are Catholics listening right now. And they're listening to this network. They pray the rosary. They go to Mass. But they think we're a little off by being so focused on abortion, that abortion's a bad thing, but, maybe it should be legal. We don't want to impose da-da-da. It's bizarre. They've been swept away by the spirit of the age. Rene Girard says the only thing more powerful than the spirit of the age is the Holy Spirit. And when these enthusiasms come, and we've seen it in the COVID and the responses to COVID, when these enthusiasms erupt, it is really amazing to see how many people get swept away.
Yeah, especially this COVID thing is the COVID response is an epidemic and very bizarre. I like that word.
250 million people. David Beasley and the World Food Program, by the grace of God, are there, and they were just given the Nobel Prize. But this COVID shutdown is, we have 250 million people on the verge of starvation because of the response to COVID, not because of COVID.
Yep.
The thoughtlessness to that, the thoughtlessness to the Uyghur in concentration camps, or the Armenians today facing another genocide at the hands of Turkey, and the world is silent. And so every age has its enthusiasms. But here's what's great about the grace of being Catholic is through the sacraments, through sacramentals, we have this grace not to conform to the spirit of the age. And that's why there's nothing more repugnant than to see Catholics who do conform. What is the gospel? The gospel is, in its social dimension, is standing with the truly vulnerable.
Yeah.
Not feigning concern for the vulnerable with everyone else at the same time. That's virtue signaling. That's what Girard would call victimism. That's feigning concern for the vulnerable, for wealth, for power, to sell sneakers. So Nike virtue signals for Black Lives Matter. Well, their shoes are being made by slaves in concentration camps in Chinese-occupied
There you go.
Right.
We got to have you on more often.
Yeah. I want to say, I love what you're doing.
I think Guadalupe Radio should just give me your show and lay you guys off.
I think we all just lost our jobs.
You're going to can us.
The truth is out. It's a staged coup. I set it all up.
Alex, you're going to take over.
There you go. I got you.
I think I'm just here on Twitter, and I'm sure we all agree we love and respect Bishop Strickland from the Diocese of Tyler.
It's my first tweet every morning is Bishop Strickland. First tweet every morning.
Yeah, and I think there's got to be a spirit of, in a good sense, argumentation, dispute, even among hierarchy about some of these issues. And you might have seen that Bishop Robert Barron from Los Angeles put out 4 principles for Catholics during election season on Word on Fire. And Bishop Strickland tweeted this morning and said, in response to Bishop Barron, he said, this is Bishop Strickland writing, I add an overarching issue. Both parties are flawed, but the Democratic Party not only supports abortion, but advocates for it and supports the Planned Parenthood industry built on selling parts of unborn children for scientific research. This tips the scales, he said. All right, so
unnatural sex,
yes,
as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's over the top on that with those candidates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and the platform, whereas it's not.
Wait, can I break that down just real quick?
Yes, please do.
Because this is, I make movies, but as Alex will tell you, I don't really make movies. I'm a filmmaker, but filmmakers are an instrument of my apostolate. I run a Catholic human rights organization, and our mission is to advance the interests of the vulnerable from the child in the womb to the Yazidi in Iraq. And so I'm often in these countries. So my heart is in these countries because these are actually my friends. When we look, we've never seen it, and I was almost a never Trumper, as Alex can tell you, in 2016. I was distraught. But when I look back at the behavior of this man over the past 4 years as president, ISIS is gone. The Christians and Yazidis facing genocide have been liberated in Iraq. His political appointees at USAID and the World Food Program have been the only ones in the world trying to stop this horrible famine that the New York Times puts on page B16. How do you put 250 million people starving on page B16 on a Tuesday? He has not gotten us in any wars. He's actually stopped the neoliberal establishment's push for war with Iran, war with Russia, and war in Syria. We've shattered, Biden administration and Biden-Obama administration shattered Yemen, shattered Libya, shattered Iraq, abandoned Iraq, sought to shatter Syria. So from food security to standing with the Yazidis, the Chaldeans, the Assyrians, the Uyghurs, the Nuba, this administration has really been the best. And the problem is there are too many Catholics that are thinking about what people think about them, and this goes for people in the hierarchy. We need to love more than we worry about what people think about us.
Amen.
At the end of the day, I don't care what you think about me. And if you think something about me that's true, that's not good, I'm glad. Please express it so I can self-correct. And we've seen people in the hierarchy who've been swept away by the spirit of the age. But this is the sadness. When we're swept away by the spirit of the age, it leaves the most vulnerable abandoned, because the spirit of the age is weaponized against the vulnerable. So what we need to do is be at the foot of the cross at every age. So in 1954, we need to be marching against for desegregation. In 1939, we need to speak out against anti-Semitism. Today, we need to speak up for the Muslim Uyghurs in concentration camps in East Turkestan. We need to stand with the child in the womb. And, and it is such a grace to stand with the vulnerable of your age. Rene Girard, I'm sorry for giving a Girardian lecture here, but he says, when you stand with the vulnerable, you become indistinguishable from the vulnerable from the mob. They can't tell the difference between you and who they're attacking. What a beautiful thing to think of, that if you stand with the vulnerable, you become indistinguishable from the vulnerable. What a great way to live a life. That's the Christian way to live your life.
Yeah, it's
and
a great
so I
point.
want to live a life indistinguishable from the child in the womb.
And Jason, I can, after knowing you for 10 years, I know that you're somebody who does that. You live that out, and it's so awesome to see. You were talking about COVID and how it sort of fast-forwarded a lot of these things. It fast-forwarded a lot of things for your family as well. I mean, you lived in Hawaii for so many years, and as of, 2 months ago, you are now a proud Texan. It feels a lot better being in Texas with you.
There's
I can
a
say.
lot of people moving to Texas these days. Yeah. Why'd you do that, Jason?
Talk about that. Yeah.
Well, there are Hawaii license plates, by the way, all over hill country of Texas. We're all moving here. So,
that's awesome. You're building your own Hawaiian commune here in New Braunfels hill country.
We're not only taking over this radio show, we're taking over Texas. So there'll be Hawaiian music as the bumper music starting tomorrow, guys. So stay tuned. But no, I was, I don't know if you saw, I was in handcuffs on the front cover of Drudge Report, which is a great way to fill up your email inbox and get a lot of phone calls.
Yeah.
That's great.
But I led the first Reopen event in Hawaii, and I was the first person, I think, in the world arrested at a Reopen event, and then Drudge put it on the front above the fold. But for me, Hawaii is the lockdown is supposed to end today. Can you believe that? Wow. They've been locked down since March completely.
Wow.
And it's supposed to end today. There are lines for food 7 miles long, cars lined up. We have had 0 COVID deaths. About 120 people with COVID died that had comorbidities. But the suicides have been... I couldn't stand to see my own state die, and I would not allow them to imprison my family. So in June, we decided to sell our house and deploy to Texas for my apostolate. But we'll be back to Hawaii. But like I said in early March, and Alex, you probably remember, I was writing this in early March, that the reason I was leading a Reopen event in Hawaii was not expressing my First Amendment rights, which I have the right to do. It was, as I said then, I'm more worried about the people in Bangladesh and the people in Africa, that I think that this is going to lead to famine. And in fact, it did. I predicted 250 million people this year, and the World Food Program is now saying the number's 250 million. New York Times reported it 250 million 2 weeks ago. So because I've written 2 books on genocide, democide, and total war, and when governments clamp down on the economy, they forget. The Great Famine in China was simply caused by Mao not letting people farm. Same thing with the Khmer Rouge. You don't let people go to work. You don't let them grow food, process food, and distribute food. People starve. Now, it's not going to slow us down. We're going to have our big gulps and eat our big bags of flaming hot Doritos while we Netflix and whatever. But what's going to happen is that the people on the margins, the people that barely had enough calories in the best of times, we're going to be pushed over the edge. That's exactly what we're seeing.
Jason, let me because we just have, pardon me, a few more minutes with you, and I don't know if you saw this story. I found it on LifeSite News, and I just want to get your take on it. It says, and this I think has to do with media influence. I can't imagine anything else. It says Republicans are ready to return to normal, but Democrats aren't. A new poll suggests, and some pretty striking statistics here. They asked people, "Are you ready to return to normal activities right now?" 5% of Democratic men said yes. 64% of Republican men said yes. 3% of Democratic women are ready to return to normal. 54% of Republican women are returning. So it seems to fall along political lines, and I don't quite understand why that would be the case. Any thoughts on that, of why just because somebody might be liberal or left-leaning, they're more in favor of lockdowns and shelter in place and face masks and all that? What do you think's behind that?
I don't know, but I'm going to cut that out and put it on my refrigerator. If my children ever ask me again why they're not allowed to court Democrats, I'm going to say, look at that study right there.
Yeah.
There's your answer. No, I have to really look at that and think about that. My next movie is actually on the shutdowns. That's very intriguing. And I don't understand where that's coming from. I think a lot of it might have to do with godlessness. The one thing I've learned about all this is, when I do my little trips where I travel to Iraq or Sudan and people around me get so worried, I'm like, just relax already. What I've learned from this is people are really afraid of dying. They're really, and the less they believe in God and the less they seem to be enjoying their life, the greater their fear is. I'd like to see I'd like to see maybe a poll on people who believe in God and, because if you look at the facts, like in Hawaii, we've had over 700 people die of the flu, with the flu, and 120 die with COVID. No, they don't have this horrible fear of the flu, but yet they're afraid of COVID. But the flu has killed more people in Hawaii this year. That study it's very telling, and it scares me because if Biden is elected president, he's going to have a lot of folks that are going to support him in his commitment to shut us down for a year.
Yeah.
Shut us. Who would vote for a guy that's like, I'm going to shut your economy down for a year?
Yeah.
And by the way, the impact on this country will be devastating, but we are going to see 1 billion people starve to death if you shut this economy down for another year.
Jason, we got to go. There's the music. MovieToMovement.com is the website. The story I just referred to is at LifeSiteNews.com. Jason, it was a great conversation. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Aloha. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. And we're going to hang around a little bit. I'll give some more statistics from that study, and we'll discuss it. Sissel will join us, and we hope you will as well on Facebook. Thanks for joining us, and have a wonderful rest of your day and weekend. God bless you.
Thank you for listening to GRN Alive.
From the studios of the Guadalupe Radio Network.
For more faith, fun,
All right. We are officially in the after show now. Sissel has come into the studio, and Alex Trevino is here. We did not vote Dr. Malloy off the island. He has to get to his regular job over at the University of Dallas. You told him to, told him to get out of here.
I did.
All right. That was a lively discussion there with Jason Jones. I love people that just lay it on the line. You know, some people you talk to them and you think, I don't think I'm getting the whole truth. I think there's something they're hiding from me. I don't get that impression with Jason Jones. But anyways, we're on strictly on Facebook now. And if you want to comment, I'll read all the comments that you have. In fact, Mary commented earlier, and I'll read hers as well. But I always like to start these by turning to Sissel and putting her on the spot and saying, Sissel, what did you think about the show? What are your comments? By now, you got to be prepared for that question, right?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? No, I think it was really timely that we had Jason on, because especially the movie called Divided Hearts of America, because I've been pondering on this a lot. Election season always seems to be, especially this year, it's 2020, always seems to be it just brings out the worst in people most often and on every side. And this week has been a lot of me just like praying to God and saying, just bring me peace of mind about this, because it just makes me upset. So I really am interested in that movie, and I want to see it. Because I like the idea that he had people from different perspectives coming on, and it was a discussion, you can talk about it, because that's what we're lacking so much these days.
Yeah, I remember one time there was this, and Alex, you'll appreciate that. Well, you both will. You're both in film, but there was this film crew that came down. They called me and said, "Hey, we're coming to Texas, and we're doing this film on abortion, and can we, can we film you doing a show?" And I said, sure. And so I asked Karen Garnett, who was at the time the executive director of the Catholic CPLC. I said, will you come in and we'll just do kind of a little interview, and they're going to film it and all that. So they came in and we did it. Well, I found out like a year later, it was a very pro-abortion documentary that they were doing.
Oh wow.
And they didn't tell me that right off the bat, but then again, I guess, okay, whatever.
You gave your thoughts.
They wanted to show how some media down in Texas is, very pro-life. But I don't know. I guess I'm tying this into Divide Hearts of America, because like I asked Jason, how do you do that where you're getting both sides, but you clearly are pushing an agenda, right? So from a filmmaking standpoint, what do you think?
Obviously you have to be just very clear with what the goal is and what the point is. I don't think he would waste too much time trying to track down people who would not be interested in the conversation. So I think that, eliminates a lot of people, to be honest. But I think once you have someone on board that wants to share their beliefs, and it's a platform to share it on, I don't see a lot of people, saying no to that and being excited about it.
I don't like the idea that they didn't tell you what the documentary was about. I don't know about you, Alex, but I'm an incredibly honest person.
You would tell,
and I would tell somebody so they can outright say no, so they know exactly. I don't like that part of media of being kind of sly and not telling people the full truth. I don't like that.
Yeah, I guess I could have asked. I didn't ask. I just assumed that they were pro-life. They didn't lie to me. Lucy says, really enjoyed listening to Jason Jones. We will definitely be checking out his movies. So glad he moved to Texas.
Where is he in the San Antonio area?
Hill Country,
Hill Country, okay.
Between like San Antonio and Austin.
And he said he said he's seen a lot of Hawaii.
I guess they're coming over, Californians, everyone.
So you got to get a car here, like on a boat or what?
And we've done that to Hawaii, and it's actually it's a lot more cost effective.
Yeah, Jason is really popular. My buddy Scott just texted me and said, you need to give Jason a show. Great discussion. So maybe he's onto something. Maybe he needs to get his own show. He wants it. He wants to take over the Guadalupe Radio Network.
No, it's not so secret anymore, y'all.
His first time on the station, he's like, I'm coming for you. It's great. It's great.
Yeah. Let me read one other comment. Let's see. Where is that comment from Mary? I lost it. Mary.
Oh, do you want me to read it for you?
Yeah, please do.
Mary said that I think the church's moral teachings divides us from many in our country, expressly in the non-negotiables as articulated by Pope Benedict XVI on the protection of life, religious liberty, and through 9 papacies, the church definitive renouncement of socialism, which places the government in the place of God.
Yeah. Socialism. That's another thing. I mean, we didn't touch on it too much, but that's a big threat. And I think people are not seeing the threat of socialism, Marxism, that really is kind of knocking on our door. I saw the the documentary the other night with my wife, Wolf in Sheep's Clothing, which was about Saul Alinsky. Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, boy, that guy was bad news.
Oh,
yeah. And this thing goes way back. Bella Dodd. I mean, this isn't just like something that started with Antifa and Black Lives Matter.
No, this is from like the 50s and 60s and probably even before that.
Yeah. So any other takes? I know you didn't get to probably jump in as much as you would have liked.
Well,
but,
no, because when you have him talking on Renee Girard, he doesn't stop.
Yeah.
He's a huge fan of his, and the Spirit of the Age talk is one that I've just heard about for a long time. But no, he's a good guy, and it's interesting because making films and documentaries for him is just the front. What he's actually interested in is protecting the vulnerable, standing amongst those who don't have advocates, who it kind of seems countercultural to stand with them, like the Christians in Iraq, who, just like the New York Times article that was on B16, that they've been going through that for years and years and years, and now no one's talking about the fact that these Christians who've been there since the 100s and 200s for 1900 years, that they're not under the threat of ISIS anymore. It just doesn't get talked about. When ISIS was such a big deal, in 2015 and before. So he definitely uses the filmmaking as a sort of the storefront, but what actually matters is protecting people.
And the media bias issue is so huge, and I think that's what we were talking about earlier in the program. And I know it's so there's such a stark difference between the two political parties that I think, and I can understand, if you come out and you find something positive, and I think you were getting at this, Sissel, as well, in the other side, and you just say, I really like that policy of the let's just say, I'm just making this up. Let's say I like that, $15 an hour minimum wage. I think that's really just, I don't personally, I'm just making an example here, but
right.
You see, I even have to defend myself. If I have the perception, you know what I mean? That's the pressure I think everybody's under. I think Samantha Guthrie last night on NBC was thinking, if I don't nail President Trump, every one of my colleagues is going to be hammering me. I've got to nail this guy.
Right.
I can't be nice. Look, Dianne Feinstein, she hugs Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, she gets attacked for being nice.
I know. That's such it's so terrible. And obviously in part it's the media kind of being very polarized and everything has to be so intense. But, it's just us everyday people too. We're getting very unkind with each other.
Yeah.
It's like all sides. I have friends on all sides on social media, and it's just getting worse every day.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, remember, y'all, guys, we are all, humans here. We can all find something that we can agree on somewhere.
Yeah.
At least it's a beautiful day today. At least for goodness sake.
Yeah.
And I think eventually the country is going to agree on abortion. I
agree.
brought up racism, and no decent person is a racist in this country. Whereas I think 50, 60 years ago, you people could have argued, well, he's a good guy, but he's just he's a racist.
He keeps that behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Rather than that, he's great.
Right.
But you can still kind of put them in that same, but still today, I know a lot of, quote, good people that are pro-abortion, and otherwise they're very respected in society, and I just think the day is coming, and I don't know what's going to turn. What's the tipping point?
Who knows what it is? Because the science is definitely on our side, and that's something that's progressed massively since the 70s. I mean, the science is very clear that an individual, a new strand of DNA, all those kinds of things. But I think it's a heart issue more than anything else.
Yeah, no, I agree. I wonder if it needs to be that maybe more leaders need to talk about what we need to do for the women and the children.
Yeah,
I think that's a thing.
Yeah, and I think adopting certain sort of policies on the one side would help a lot, like helping women who can't help themselves, with education or costs, like child rearing costs, things like that. I think that would make the package seem more complete.
But all these crisis pregnancy centers,
but they already do that.
They do that. Yeah, but they could get more support. Like if it was more of a, an effort across the entire country that everyone was supporting those pregnancy centers, then women could do more. And someone pointed out to me the other day, and I never had thought about it, is that women who choose to adoption, which is the loving option, that's a beautiful thing. Oftentimes, once the adoption agency takes the baby, the mom is still left on her own, and she could have postpartum depression. There's so many things that still happen. And there's a lot of things, I think, even though I think the pro-life movement, we cover a lot of bases. We really do. I still think there's always more we can improve on.
Yeah, and I think it could also be like a marketing thing too, because, like from what you're saying, and I believe you 100% because I know it too, that these pro-life centers do so much good work. outside of just saving babies.
Oh,
They
100%.
do a lot. They pay for rent. They do this. They provide food, diapers, all that stuff. But I wish that kind of stuff would get marketed so much more by the pro-life advocates.
Exactly.
So you have a lot of these like sidewalk advocates. All they're talking about is saving the baby, saving the baby, saving the baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish they also included in that. And at least, it might just be what I see on social media. It might just be what gets amplified more than anything else. But I wish equally amplified was when you have the baby saved, you're also saving the mother's life.
Yes.
And then you're going to help the mother. And then, that generational sort of that generational hurt is going to be completely cured because we're going to help you sort of stop it.
And I feel like politicians too, saying like we want to support a woman so much that it would be unthinkable that she felt so supported.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have a local pregnancy center here. We just did an interview with a few weeks ago, Dave, that supports the mom and her child up till the child is in kindergarten.
Kindergarten, yeah.
Kindergarten.
Jeez. That's like 5 or 6
but they're
years
not
old.
like it's they're helping that mother get a job. They're helping with things, getting her on her feet so that empowering her to be able to be a single mom if she needs to be.
That's awesome.
All right. So
That's awesome.
what if a person, a very, very, very high profile, I'm thinking Oprah Winfrey, Barack Obama, gets an epiphany and changes?
I really thought Obama was going to
And they come out because, I always teach my students in my Thomas Aquinas class, supporting life, that's natural law. Nobody. It is one of the commandments. Do not kill. But nobody really needs to be taught that abortion's wrong. That's why it's so strange. Is that this is something that any 5-year-old would know. Show them a picture of a baby in the womb. Should we protect that? Yes.
Right.
Every 5-year-old without question would say yes. So somehow people are getting twisted. But if there was a high-profile person like an Obama that had an epiphany and came out one day and said, you know what, I was wrong. I was wrong. This is life, and we have to respect it. Would that be a tipping point? Would that turn? I mean, if somebody big enough had a turnaround,
who knows?
I think culture does, like celebrities do influence the culture quite a bit, especially the younger generations, and so I think it could definitely make people think more.
Yeah,
about
people
it.
hardly ever change their mind. I thought Teddy Kennedy, being Catholic at the end of his life, would have, if for the sake of his soul, or some of these people that you think, gosh, you go into your deathbed. And I mean, we're all sinners, and I don't want to go to my deathbed with any sin. Of course, I'm, the sinner like the next person, but something that's really intrinsically evil that you at least publicly, he may have had a private change of heart, but not a public one.
Yeah, I think, speaking about the celebrity culture, I think someone like Kanye West coming out.
Yeah, Lucy just commented that.
So pro-life. I mean, he's pretty much no exception pro-life.
Yeah.
And I think that's influenced and changed a lot of people's
It
minds.
definitely has. It's unfortunate. It's Kanye is
influential artist.
Kanye, and he kind of already was one of those figures that you either loved him or hated him.
Right.
And so it's
I've
one of
always
those.
thought he was a genius.
Yeah. Well.
808 and Heartbreaks.
So it's one of those things that I think it did definitely help. At least again, people stop and consider a little bit more. But sometimes you're like, maybe someone who's just overall just loved,
Yeah.
a little bit more,
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of Obama.
Loved and respected.
Look how many people follow him on Twitter. He is
True.
loved. People love.
He is loved, yeah.
Bill Clinton was loved. I mean, Oprah Winfrey is loved. I mean, these are people that are highly respected.
What's unfortunate about the people that we mentioned, and Obama actually had that very interesting comment about aborting the grandchild. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think it really. I can point to him as an example, but I think a lot of people, for the most part, are personally pro-life. Like they would never do it themselves.
Yes, but it's that idea of you can't overstep,
like trampling on the rights of someone else to choose. But personally, they're probably these. Like Joe Biden, he says he's personally pro-life, but that he could never impose that on someone else.
I think actually most people,
I think most people are.
There's only a few people who are like staunchly
like I want to kill people.
Like they're the women who go around touting saying I love my abortions.
I think those are a minority. That's a minority.
It's a minority. Loud minority, but a minority.
Yeah. And who was it? John Legend's wife recently.
Chrissy Teigen lost her
suffered
baby.
a miscarriage, and she, tweeted from her hospital bed about how she lost her baby and
awful,
how sad she was, and people were pouring out support, hopefully on both sides. It's just saying, hey.
They
were. But this is they're recognizing that this was a life,
right? And so I pray that they had this epiphany too.
Yeah,
yes,
and I pray for obviously healing and that nothing bad happens after this, like depression, anything like that.
Yes,
but I also definitely did pray that they, saw it different. And what was so ironic about that was Planned Parenthood tweeting their
Yeah,
condolences to her.
right,
That's
right.
awful.
That's,
that
the
was
irony.
very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, because I am getting some response and a few responses. I wish Jason had more time to talk about this. I brought it up at the very end about this study from LifeSite News that says Republicans are ready to return to normal, but Democrats aren't. This new poll suggests. A recent Gallup poll analysis suggests a radical difference in the perspectives on the coronavirus between Republicans and Democrats. And I mentioned the one is just huge. Are you ready to return to normal activities right now?
Mm-hmm.
Democrat women, 3%.
That's crazy.
Democrat men, 5%. Republican men, 64%. Republican women, 54%. I personally have been ready to go back to regular for a long time. I mean,
Right.
And now here's the other one. Are you worried about getting the coronavirus? Democratic men, 77%. Republican men, 20%. Democratic women, 80%. Republican women, 29%. Stark differences.
Yeah,
Wow.
I have seen that one.
And so the more liberal, the more Democrat you are, the more you're worried, the more you don't want to go outside, according to the study. The more you favor lockdowns, the more you favor shelter in place, the more conservative you are, the more you're like, let's get out there.
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
the
and you see
world-
it in Trump and Biden too.
And the World Health Organization just came out strongly against lockdowns. Something that they were supportive of 7 months ago. No, it's really sad just because, Trump said this a lot in the town hall yesterday, that the cost for the cure can't be worse than the virus itself. And I think he also means the economy and, people's mental health, like all those things put together cannot be worse off than, should not make you worse off than just getting the virus.
Yeah, and Jason brought up a good point about other countries that are suffering, and we've not been able. My dad brought up very early on in this whole thing. He says, the first world supports the third world, and if we're shutting down our economy, how are we supposed to help them?
Right.
And yeah, again, as soon as we started having lockdowns, the first thing I thought of were people in domestic abuse situations.
Yep.
They're now stuck at home.
Yeah.
They're, people who are suffering with depression and other mental, illnesses are just left alone with their thoughts. And that's such a bad place to be. And so, again, we should be protecting our vulnerable 100%. But, we also can't just say, all those things together, there's a lot more than just COVID going on in the world.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I know some very liberal people, very friendly, outgoing people. I've had wine with them, people in our kids' sports leagues and stuff like that. And I just who wants to be shut in their house? Who wants to be worried?
Right.
And who wants businesses to be closed? Who wants to not be able to go to restaurants? I mean, what's going on there? Lucy said the answer to why more Democrats are not willing to go back to normal right now is that
Tell us, Lucy.
They are willing to let the government tell them what to do and go along with it. Those who are more religious also do not fear death because they know what Christ has promised.
That is awesome.
I think there's something
There's definitely something there. It's also, I think, that people who don't have God, they do make the government God to an extent. And so they're like, protect us. And it becomes that protect us from death, because that's the thing that they fear. Whereas we are, we're onward to another place.
I mean, there's something deep there. I mean, between somebody who's does not believe in God, and for some reason, you would think that in some sense they'd be like, this is all I got. I got this life. I got to get out there. I want to get to restaurants. Yeah, I got my 75 years of life, and I don't want to spend five of them
spend it in my living room,
locked in my house.
Right.
But that doesn't seem to be the way they react. They're like, some people have not come out of the house. I mean, seriously. I know
people too that they've only left their house 5 or 10 times since March.
I know, and I know some older people that do that. I know some younger people.
No, and older people, I can understand that they're limiting what they do. I know some people who the only thing they do is go to mass, and that's okay. That's okay.
And to me, it's exactly that. It's an odds game. It's a numbers game. Like, obviously, I'm not going to go to uptown and hit up huge bars and be around hundreds of people.
Yeah.
And I'm going to limit where I am, who I go with. So instead of going to 50 places in 1 week, I'm only going to go to 10 or 12. I'm still going to enjoy those 10, 12 times, but I'm not putting myself in a ton of situations where I'm exposed.
Right.
And I'm still enjoying life. You're still being careful. I think that's and it's also nice because it kind of, it's making me realize just to slow down a little bit and enjoy life.
Oh yeah, no, there's definitely been positives to the
very
lockdown
and be very what's the right word? Be very just be more active with the choices that I make instead of just like very lazily saying, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this today. It's like plan out the day really well, say where you're going to go, be very strategic with what you're doing in the week, and it gives everything a lot more purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it's been like for me, and everybody needs to chill out and just take it easy.
I'm quote you on that.
We'll get him a hat that says everyone just needs to chill out.
Everyone needs to chill.
I agree with that.
Go slow and enjoy it.
That'll be along with the dogma lives loudly. And
yes.
I thought Frank Valenzuela was a great guest.
He was absolutely. That was
he brought the goods. He's
got a great voice.
He does have a good voice. I was like, can we get him spots? I know
who's hosting this? They both sound very radio-y. I love it.
So the question I asked him about, kind of like, it pained me a bit to see Justice Barrett kind of have to hide herself, and maybe that's just part of the game. And we can't be an open book entirely our whole life, But when she's being asked about Griswold versus Connecticut and contraception and Roe v. Wade, and do you desire to overturn it? And she's got to say, well, I can't comment on that. Mm-hmm. Where she really would like to say, of course. I mean, I can't speak
imagine
for her,
she would too.
But yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. Alexander says, wow, so if you were a Democrat, you don't believe in God? Please stop this. You are committing a sin by perpetuating the current situation. Okay. Okay, Alexander, I did not say every Democrat doesn't believe in God. I said, I think as maybe that was the insinuation, but certainly.
Yeah, no,
I think there are definitely Democrats that believe in God. But I think that the people who are more in favor of lockdowns and shelter in place and more concerned, I would say I think there's more. I think this would play out. There are more atheists in the Democratic Party than the Republican Party. I think that's a fact.
I think that is, yeah.
But that's not to say every Democrat.
No, not at all.
No, definitely.
So, Alexander, I did not mean to imply that.
Yeah, and there are amazing people on both sides. You know, there are.
But can an amazing person support abortion?
No.
You had a lot of people, and this is kind of controversial, including the president, including Amy Coney Barrett, that's had high accolades for Justice Ginsburg.
Absolutely.
The president's very first response was she was an amazing woman.
He had the most measured response out of anybody.
Yeah.
I was so surprised.
Now, should he have at that time said, I think she was wrong about abortion? I mean,
Prudence would probably say no.
Yeah, probably not at the moment
no,
you
that's
find
not
out
a
about
time
her
to
death.
do that.
I mean,
No,
if somebody who I think is a scoundrel dies, my first response about them is not, oh gosh, I didn't like what he thought about this. I think you got to respect the fact that they were made in the image and likeness of God, and pray for their salvation and have God's mercy.
Oh, real quick, my beautiful wife, just texted me because I was missing the word that I was talking about. It's to be intentional with your time. That's the word I was looking for.
You need to listen to Jeff Scheffelbein's show, Undivided Attention.
Yeah, it's on today at 11
and
KTH. Yeah.
All right.
Can I do my feel-good story?
Yes.
I didn't get a chance to do it because we were just too busy today.
I don't want to be lifted out of my depression, sister.
I'm sorry.
Come
I just want to do a feel-good. So it's actually one that's local here in Dallas that I saw. There is an ice cream store called Howdy Homemade that is known for its original delicious flavors, but also its public service missions. All of its employees are individuals with special needs. So I thought that was really cool and very pro-life to be doing. And just this last week, they were surprised with a $50,000 grant because they've been struggling, obviously, through the pandemic.
Awesome.
They were live on today, on this morning, actually. And so I thought that was really cool, and I just wanted to point that out.
That is to be coupled with your opening statement about falling out of your bed this morning into the splits. Now that kind of took me by surprise a little bit, I must say.
I wanted to wake you up and make sure everyone was, up and at 'em. I was originally going to say before what happened this morning, but my life is so comical. I was going to say that I spent 24 hours this last week without my cell phone because I left it in adoration. It spent the night with Jesus, and I didn't.
That's probably where all phones should be at night.
I remember when our pastor recently resigned, and he moved up to the Northeast, and he said the first thing he was going to do, because he's an older guy, he's in retirement, is he said, I'm going to throw my smartphone into the lake. And I don't know if he was serious about that or not, but I've been tempted to do that before. But to tell us a little bit more of that story, because we didn't have a lot of time to delve into it in our rushed hour of broadcasting. But what happened this morning exactly?
The split story or
the split story.
The splits.
Okay, split story. All right. Well, okay. So it kind of starts yesterday because, Wednesday. I did leave my phone in adoration, which meant that I switched alarm clocks yesterday. So I used my traditional kind of bell alarm clock, which is interesting to get used to. And then last night I switched back to my phone, but I guess I got used to the sound of the other alarm clock because I overslept a bit. And I woke up at the time I usually would be well into the car. Let's put it that way. And so I was in a bit of a panic, and my sister and I share a room, and I have the top bunk I have for years. Our room is just too small to have anything else. And I jumped out of my bed. And I've always said that one day I'm going to hurt myself doing this because I don't use the ladder. I just vault out of the bed.
You jump, yeah.
And of course, it's pitch black. And I may or may not have left clothing on the floor. And I just went into full splits when I landed. I just landed badly and went into the splits. And my sister was just waking up then, and she just sees me on the floor in like pain, going like, "Oh my goodness, I think I just hurt myself." But then I'm like in a panic, so I rushed, and I was in the car 2 minutes later.
I mean, this is. Can you do the splits? I mean, under normal
if I
circumstances,
stretch a lot, I can do. I can't go all the way down. I'm a few inches off.
Because if you do the splits and you can't otherwise do the splits, that'd be a whole lot worse than doing the splits when you can do the splits, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no. See, that's the thing is I can't 100% do the splits. And so, yeah, it definitely didn't feel good. But hey, I got my morning stretch in when I didn't think I had time to.
Yeah, and you probably woke up like...
I was really awake then.
I
was really awake then. I think we should do that every Friday morning. I think we should all talk about something that happened to us that week.
I was like, we're all going to go out there and do the splits before the show.
Talk about how you're doing exercising-wise.
Yeah, my daughter knows how to do the splits. And when I see it, I was like,
that just doesn't look
natural, but
exactly.
No, it really doesn't.
Yeah. All right, great show. Thank you so much. Good having you here. And do we want to give a little tease about other guests that you're trying to get on, or do we want to leave that a secret?
Ooh, we should leave it a secret.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm really excited.
I don't even know who it is, so I'm in the.
I'm really excited.
dark.
We've confirmed it I think yesterday.
Alex is the guy. Even though the guests disassociate themselves with him right when they come on the air and pretend like they don't know him, like Jason did today. He said, "What? Yeah, I'm an acquaintance." Didn't really want to be.
That was such a burn. Are you okay?
I mean, I'm used to it.
Yeah, but this guy, well, I won't give any hints. Let's just say he's more handsome than me. Okay, so that leaves a lot of people.
I'm like sitting here going, "What?" I don't know how to comment on that.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Sissel's thinking, well, that's like 90% of the men in the world, Dave. What's up
how do you feel? How do you feel about that?
I wasn't going to say it.
Yeah, my burn's not that bad.
Yeah, so Dave, you've given us like nothing. There's no. That didn't narrow the field very much at all, Dave. All right. Thanks, Diane, for her great work on social media. Thanks, everybody, for your comments. Joan Freeman said, "I want one of the Dogma Lives Loud Me and Me hats."
Oh, I can send you the link. I'll put it on Facebook.
Alexander said, "Blessings to all," and he's the one also that commented about the Democrats. And Alexander, thank you for pointing that out. That's important to say. And I think that does it. All right, good show. We'll see you next Friday. And don't forget, Joe and the team, Monday, 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, GRN Live Monday. Thank you for watching and listening. May God bless you. Okay, and I got to go to... We had quite a few people hang with us.
Yeah, there's a lot of comments.